Hey everyone, this is Anna, and thanks so much for visiting my channel. I've noticed an increase in the little serrated tracing wheel that I use on my projects to get the faux stitching look, and so I thought I would just do a quick little video talking about this little tool and showing you some of the other ones that I have. I have some vintage ones that are kind of fun, and then just giving you some tips and tricks on how I find using this little tool works the best. So this is the one I use most frequently currently. It is an ergonomic design, I guess, but it's just a standard tracing wheel, a serrated tracing wheel from the company Dritz. And this is a sewing notion, so you can usually find this in the notions section at like Joann or Hobby Lobby. Just look for serrated tracing wheel. They also have a tracing wheel that has a smooth surface as well, and that one doesn't work very well. It doesn't leave a very good impression in paper. So if you're interested in this little tool, look for the serrated version of the wheel. I also have this one, which I really like this one as well. This is also a Dritz tool, and it has the exact same wheel actually. And they're just held, the wheel is held into the handle with just a little aluminum, I don't know, pin basically that's flattened out on the other side. And one thing is this little aluminum pin won't last forever. This one is just about ready to give. So what I will end up doing is just putting a little screw through this one side to hold the wheel in place. And yes, I'll have the end of the screw sticking out here just a little bit, but that's okay. There's lots of life left in this wheel yet, and the handle as well. So I might as well fix it and use it a little bit longer. In fact, here's a wheel of one that I actually wore the handle out, wore that little pin out, and I didn't want to throw the wheel away because it's perfectly good. So if one of these wheels dulls down, because I've actually put enough miles on one of these wheels to make it nearly smooth. So if one of these little wheels dulls down, then I have a little spare wheel that I can use. So, and like I said, I'll just put a little screw, I'll just put it in the handle, put a little screw through, and that'll hold it in place. I also have this one here. This has a little wooden handle. This one has a little bit pointier of a surface, and the circumference of the wheel itself is a little bit smaller than the Dritz ones. This is just branded Project Runway, but it's just a little wooden handle. It has this little ergonomic belly here that you can press down on while you're using the tool. But works the same. I also have this one that's a little vintage wheel. I think this one's probably a Singer, the Singer brand. And this one actually has a flatter surface. So instead of leaving little poke marks or holes, it leaves little dash lines, and that's kind of fun. And then I also have this one here, which also is antique, and it has a similar wheel to the others, the Dritz ones, but this one's a little bit sharper, pointier, but the circumference of the wheel is about the same. And this one I actually really like. I really enjoy using this particular one. This one I think is for leather, doing patterns on leather. And so this particular wheel is really, really pokey. I don't recommend using this style on paper, but I think it came, I think I bought it on eBay in a lot with a different one. So it was, buy one, get one free basically. So, but anyway, I'll show you what the pattern that one leaves. And then another one that I have is this one here, also antique. This one actually is a double wheel. One wheel is really pokey and the other wheel has that flatter surface. And so you can run them together, but I actually use them tilted just slightly, so it's really running just one wheel at a time. So let me go ahead and show you how I use these tools and give you just some pointers. Let me find a piece of paper. All right, so I have a couple of index cards here. I'll just use the back side. So one thing I've noticed when using the tool, it helps to have something that it can press down into, like a self-healing mat, like this, or even like a junk mail catalog or a piece of chipboard. So if you set this underneath your project and you put your project on top of whatever surface you can press down into, you're going to get a much more realistic looking stitch line than if you are using it on a hard surface. So I'll go ahead and show you the one that I am currently using most often, which is this little purple handled one. And this is the one that I think the pin is just about ready to break. So it might break in the video. I don't know. So I just hold the tool in my hand, and it does take a little bit of pressure. And Just roll it along. If you want more precise straight lines, you can run it along the edge of a ruler. Like for example, here's my little clear ruler here. They do run really easily along a ruler, so you can make your lines perfectly straight if you'd like. I don't tend to be too worried about straight lines, so I just tend to try and follow the edge of the paper as close as possible, and I'm okay with a little wonkiness in my faux stitch lines. But you can see how when I use it on the chipboard here, it makes a really nice impression, whereas if I have it on something that's more of like a hard surface, it would more just leave like little dots instead of you making the nice impressions here. Here's an example of the little wooden handled one. This is the one that's marketed with Project Runway, which I don't know if they're available anymore, but I'm sure you could find the similar tool. And so same thing. This one has slightly pokier circle points on the circle, but it does something similar. So you'll also find some of them they're a little too much. There's a little too much give side to side, and it does make keeping your lines straight a little more difficult if there's too much flop side to side. The other one that I really like using is this little wooden, this little blue one, and this is just very similar to the first one that I used, but this one has that wobble, that side to side wobble as well, and so it can be kind of a challenge to use. So I tend to like press it sideways to get that wobble out of it, and then it works just fine. And let me show you what some of the little antique ones look like, because they can be kind of fun to find. So this is the one I probably prefer using the most of all the antique ones, and I actually like holding it so that the angle of the bar there is like this in my hand. Just gives me a little bit more control. And so it leaves, just some nice little polka dot marks. Here's the one I don't like using, and again, I think this one's probably for leather, but it actually leaves more of like a sewing machine line, like if you were sewing with a sewing machine and you didn't have any thread in the machine, because it makes a truer poke through the paper. But the lines the pokes are a little too far apart, and I just don't like how it pokes down into my work surface. It poked completely through this chipboard, so I just don't like how it pokes down through into my work surface. So I just keep that one in a drawer. Here, let me show you this little old one that has the flatter surface on the wheel. This one's kind of fun. So instead of leaving a poke mark, it leaves little dashes. And it has a really nice steady position on the wheel itself. So you can see instead of little poke mark, it leaves dashes. So that's kind of fun. And then this double-wheeled one, which I mentioned, you can roll it at the same time, but it doesn't roll very well. So I tend to use it one wheel at a time. And I don't use this one very often because it doesn't roll very well, but if you find one of these that's kind of a novelty, and each one leaves a slightly different type of poke mark. So anyway, I thought I would just mention that to you. There are different kinds. They do leave different types of marks. These are my favorite to use, and this old vintage one as well. So if you see these out and about and you don't have one, pick it up. It should be a fairly inexpensive tool and creates a really neat look on paper projects. And I've been using these tools since before we even had stitching dies. I was adding faux stitching to my projects with these little hand tools, and then they started coming out with all different kinds of dies that have stitch lines in them. So I have, of course, lots of stitch dies, and I've designed stitch dies, but I still reach for this little tool on almost every single project I make. In fact, here's one I made ages ago, before I think there were even metal dies that had stitching. And you can see I did a similar technique that I did to those Easter eggs and the bunnies by just layering different pieces of paper here. And then I actually added the faux stitching at the edges of the paper here as well. And here's another one. So I just think it adds a really neat little texture, and you know, just like on our faux stitchings and our dies, it's just a nice visual way of adding interest. So anyway, I hope this was a fun little video for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be back later with a card share. So thanks again for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.